of Fame podcast brought to you by One Truck America. That's onetruck.us. As always, we'd like to give you a little industry update before we get into our 3PL episode, which I think is very exciting with Lucas. He's a good friend of mine. He runs Raven Cargo. But prior to getting to that, disruption is here. As everyone knows, the tariffs is causing a lot of shakeup in our industry. It's changing a lot of things. Eventually, I think we'll see a reduction in what's brought overseas imports that those are coming over on maritime, on the ocean ships, and more manufacturing here. Now, what that swing will be, I don't know, but you've seen some of that disruptions now when you think about the amount of you had a great first quarter in the port of LA and New Jersey, and we have articles about both of those on One Truck America right now. But I think that's everyone getting prepped for the tariffs prior to them hitting. Now with a 90-day basically delay on the major tariffs, other than China, you will see some of that free up, but still China is still issue since China produce, I think, roughly 50 to 60% of the freight that comes into the LA port. We expect those numbers to fall a lot in the second quarter. So there's still a lot to happen. We don't know when these tariffs are finalized and we're down to business as usual. We get an idea how the shift of the freight market will happen. Now, nothing will change on the consumer. And so the consumer that buys X will still buy X tomorrow that he bought today. So the delivery point would be the same. Now, where it's being manufactured and shipped from will change. For instance, let's say we had an article out there that talked about the Xfinity Jeeps that were made in Mexico, okay? They've paused that assembly line, and I think they're moving that vehicle to either Mississippi or Smyrna, Tennessee. So now think about those vehicles made there. So now they go from Smyrna, Tennessee to Washington, Smyrna, Tennessee to New York, so forth, versus Mexico to those places. So it still needs to move from the manufacturing point to the consumer point, but that's a massive change in what our network will look like, whether it's an OTR truck hauling it, whether it's the rail, and obviously the things that come in on a ship. As this thing shakes out, I would think about 90 days after these tariffs goes into place and they're 90 days away, I'd have a better idea what that looks like and kind of line it out. Who will be the winners and losers? I think the people that will hurt the most in the next 90 to 180 days are your dray trucks. So people that are 100% dray, especially if all of your dray is coming from imports. That's 20 and 40 footers. If your whole business 20 and 40 footer imports, I think you're going to have an extreme slow in your business, and you should be very aware of a very turbulent future. So I don't mean to be the Grim Reaper here, just giving you what I see in the market. And something else to all our listeners out there, if you haven't checked out One Truck America, we've had extreme growth this year. We're up 240%. We're averaging about 128,000 people that will visit our site in 2025. So that's up quite a bit, and we expect that to continue to grow as we go forward. So with that said, let's get into our next episode of the Hall of Fame podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about the 3PL industry and Lucas from Raven Cargo. So thank you and enjoy. Welcome to the Hall of Fame podcast with the CEO of Raven Cargo, Lucas, a very good friend of mine. I've known him for years. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 3PL market. We're going to talk about how Raven Cargo is doing in the 3PL market. And generally, there's just a lot of interest. We've got a lot of requests about the 3PL market because so many of our listeners are small carriers and single carriers who don't go to the customers themselves, so they use 3PLs. And we've had some serious closing. I ran to that. I wasn't able to get it from the ATA, but from 2023 to halfway through 2024, 9,000 3PLs is closed. That's the largest number ever in a year and a half span. I'm sure when I get the number, which we will release in the next week or so, it's probably doubled. So there's obviously been a lot of shakeup in the market. He's going to give you his insights of what he saw in the past, what he saw in the last 2 years, and also what he sees going forward in 2025 and maybe 2026. So, Lucas, please introduce yourself and give an introduction you'd like. Glad to have you on the pod, baby. Let's go.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Lucas Grizz. I'm the CEO of Raven. A little bit of background on me. I spent 12 years of my first professional career doing port automation. So a lot on the logistics side, but more on the software automation of shipping terminals and rail terminals across US, Canada, and Mexico. For
Okay.
the past 5 years, I've been the CEO of Raven Cargo. We're a 3PL located in Chicago with a little bit of a technology backbone. Yeah, so I think first and foremost, let's kick off the 3PL discussion with like, listen, there's few problems with the 3PL network now, in my opinion. First one is there's a lot of dishonesty in this network. So there's a lot of lying, there's a lot of so much the trucker from the carrier to the broker to the broker to the customer, carrier to the customer. This is a so that's step one.
Yep.
I believe that there's a lot of value that a 3PL still brings. Okay. However, it's up to the 3PL to bring the value, right?
Yes.
First and foremost, you can't just be a broker for your customer. The reason
Yeah.
that they're all closing down is because the customers don't want to pay the extra fee associated, and sometimes it's not even more expensive, but just in their minds, a broker's fee for somebody that brings no value. Okay, so
Yes.
it's we've started in this space 5 years ago, and it's been we grew year over year. Between 20 and 21, of course, it's just normal what
Yeah.
happens in the market, which is a market correction that happened in 22, 23, 24. And the 3PLs that have closed down is the ones that have not brought value and created operational efficiencies within their space.
Yes.
So they added cost to the customer potentially and brought zero value. So I think for a 3PL market for a 3PL to and 3PL even slash 4PL to be around and why they're still needed, well, you have to provide real-time data. This whole
Yep.
field in logistics, we've gotten so used to providing old data from yesterday. What was our profit margin? Where do we move the load? Yesterday's data is not important.
Yeah.
You need today's data. You need the last 5 minutes data
Mhm.
because it's such a transactional based field that you need to make decisions now. If the last 15 minutes you have operational issues, you got to get them fixed now. If you want your profit margin not to drop below where you become not profitable, you need to act within minutes notice, right?
Mhm.
Providing all those dashboarding, transparency, efficiency to your customers is crucial. I believe we've been extremely successful on the Raven side. Even during the market correction, we grew our top line revenue.
Mhm.
So every year we've grown on top line revenues because we provide value to the customer, right?
Yes.
And then the trucker, you got to make it efficient for the truck drivers. You got to make it efficient to the carrier side.
Okay.
You got to be honest and transparent. So, but I think overall the 3PL industry has a lot of growth coming its way still. I think the e-commerce is going to continue to boom. It's not going to stop.
It's not. Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of companies are considering outsourcing their logistical teams
Mhm.
just because it's not their industry. So if you're manufacturing, you don't really want to deal with logistics, maybe.
It's not their
If
core.
the
Yeah.
if the partner, the 3PL partner, actually brings in value, right?
Yeah. Yes.
um,
It's not.
I think I think there's a lot of 3P. The reason that these 3PLs close is because they didn't create these efficiencies and did not provide value.
Yeah. One
I
hundred
think
percent. I go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah,
I,
and and I think it's the ones that came on board during COVID time. We started a little bit before COVID, but the ones that started during COVID saw a big boom, saw an opportunity, and then really didn't catch up with the operational efficiencies. And when the market corrected itself, they basically ran out of money.
as a
You know,
ton of them did. Ton of them did. So let me ask you a question. So let's go to transparency. So there basically were three um, technology-driven brokerages that were out there. Okay, big ones. I'm talking about Marketplace was part of JB Hunt, Convoy, and Uber Freight. Now Convoy's gone. Okay, I know
Mhm.
someone bought their technology. Okay, I know the person, but we're not going to get into that. Uber Freight is close to being gone. Whether it will close or not soon, it's whether they will continue to fund it. You don't know how Marketplace is doing because it's part of JB Hunt ICS brokerage division, so they don't break it out, so you can't really tell.
Mhm.
But the key that they were selling was transparency. They showed the customer what they were being paid and showed Why do you think they failed?
I think it's a very okay. So two things.
Go ahead.
I think this field in every field, technology enhancements and technology adoption has to be very carefully implemented. Okay, so if the field is not fully ready to be automated and it's not fully ready to be computer driven, then you need to find the balance somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it showing transparency to your customer, but at what cost of deploying it to your 50,000 partner carriers and the adoption from the truck driver that never really adopted there because you need an Uber freight app in order to
Yeah,
pick
you
up a
need the
load. Not
app.
every truck driver wanted to do it. Then all of a sudden, so the technology advancements and adoption is you walk a very fine line.
No, no,
Um,
I agree. I think the technology throughout there. And I'll give you a great example. I remember in 2018, we were trying to change our customers to electronic bill of lading. So you sign it on an iPad, just like you do for
mhm.
FedEx or anything else.
Yep.
We had a hard time doing that. We'd say, hey,
Yeah.
we'll
Exactly.
email it to you the moment you sign it. You'll get a fax. No, no, no. I want a piece of paper. And you got to understand that our industry is an older industry. You've been to a warehouse, you understand, and that
Absolutely.
adoption is slow. So I think as much as you want to push information to them, you need to push what they really are ready for and what they want. Versus thing, I think Uber pushed so much information and no one and a lot of people weren't using it, and I think they really slight themselves on the operation side. No one they weren't. I think some of these technology plays are not heavily driven by operators. And I said everything is
Yeah.
great if it delivers on time.
Yeah,
When it doesn't
and if
deliver
there's
on time,
issues, yeah,
yes,
and if there's issues, you basically your service drops. So you rely on the
yeah,
technology, and this technology only works if it's deployed across the whole ecosystem. Okay, so if you have a transportation management system that talks to your platform, then your users talk to your platform, and it all connects great. Then it makes sense. But
yes,
when there's issues, and issues in logistics happen all the time, right? There you have
yeah,
garbage data in these TMSs that push
yeah,
out garbage data to the and platforms, right? So
yeah,
I think all those technology advanced brokerages that pushed us so heavily on technology, when there were issues arising, the service suffered a lot because
yes,
then they relied on the system so much, but the system only works if it's implemented properly and like I said, implemented across the whole ecosystem. So I
yeah.
think how do you sustain in this space and how do you actually thrive in this space is use technology to share the transparency, but also provide good service, have good people working for you, right?
Yes,
Um, that's don't spend the money on the right people managing accounts, spend the money on the right operations team, and then automate and create operation efficiencies, eliminate operation inefficiencies throughout your company so you become cheaper and you provide value to the customer. I think that's the key. How do you stay in this
I
space?
I agree. Well, hey, okay, let's move on. I got something else to ask you as we run to this. What do you see in the space, in the whole logistics space, not just on the brokerage side, on the truck end? What do you see as your, if you had to tell you, when is the recovery? Because I mean, I wrote an article and we covered this on our podcast, and I said this year will be okay. I think rates will go up 2%. I don't think the market's going to come back super strong. There's a lot of volatility with the tariffs, but I think eventually it's going to line itself out. I think there are a couple of things can happen. You get more near sources, you get more manufacturing here. Translation will change. Maybe it's less maritime, maybe it's more U.S. transport. Doesn't matter. It still has to move somewhere from somewhere in order to get it in the hands of the person. But when do you see a recovery to norms? Because you can't believe even the COVID years was not norms, even though it was great, or the years now are not norms. When do you expect to see a norm in your mind?
Um,
If you had to
I
guess, I know I put you
yeah,
on the
no,
spot. Yeah.
yes, no, 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 absolutely. And so I think this is obviously everybody was optimistic when post the election
Yeah.
that we are in recovery and listen, we track data like consumer spending and all that stuff. That's been consumer spending and consumer credit has been at its all-time high.
What the
Credit
heck?
people
Yeah.
have credit card debts. So that logically, when we were coming off the election, yes, there's all this hype. But when people credit cards are maxed out, they don't consumer spend. Okay, and the biggest driving factor of 3PLs and shipping is
It's
e-commerce.
like,
That's the biggest growth now, right? So
yes.
So we knew or we were anticipating that the recovery is not here yet. I think there's a lot of volatility in the market, as you stated, with the tariffs. I think eventually this is going to shake out in the positive. We
I
are
think so.
seeing a lot of our current customers. We work with a lot of auto parts, high valued shipments, production critical. We're seeing a lot of uh, shift and a lot of increased volume across the U.S. hubs, so to speak, distribution hubs. So
Yeah.
I think it might not be the norm, but I think it's a good checks and balance
Signal.
for your for 3PLs and carriers and everybody to try to make this in a more efficient business sector, right? So I think
Hmm.
we're in this space where now people are cutting costs. They're trying to find efficiency. They're trying to automate, which is good for the field regardless, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
so I think we are gonna. I don't think this will go. I think we're on towards the bottom of the market. I think,
Hmm.
but I think we're gonna stay here for a few more months.
I, I
Um,
I think
and
so
and
too.
and maybe towards towards the beginning of next year, beginning of next year, I'm
26.
thinking 26 would be like an uptick. But use this year as another year to find the operation
Efficiency.
efficiencies and actually make your business cheaper. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's the customer that pays, right? So
Yes. You need money
so
to
so it's
spend.
so
Well,
we're coming off now pretty bad 2 years in logistics, but I think it weeded out some of the players that should have been weeded out. They
sure.
didn't. It's
Yep.
like any business sector, right?
The boom grabs a lot of people in and they start to get out. Well, I think that regardless, I don't get political on this pod, but regardless of whatever, I think the plan for this administration is simple. I think they're going to cut government. I think they're going to tariff where they can to increase manufacturing here. And they're also going to take that money and give it back to the people. Because exactly what you said, they don't have the money on their credit card to spend. But if you start
Correct.
giving people back more of their money, they're gonna
Correct.
they're gonna fucking spend it.
Correct.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
that is the idea
Absolutely.
is they're gonna take that money. Okay, all right, less a smaller Department of Education, a smaller this, a smaller that. Stop paying for this, stop paying for that. Okay, let's give you back your tax money. And you
Yeah.
know the
Absolutely.
US economy, they're gonna go out and spend that money. So that's the
And
deal.
and listen, I think from a political standpoint, I think it was needed too. It's just like it was needed in logistics. Like every year where you try to cut costs and create efficiency is a good year, And I
Yes.
think, from a government standpoint, I think that was way overdue. So I think I'm kind of excited for it, and we've been seeing that in a 3PL/logistics space as well.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I give you a last time just to finish up on anything you want to say. You talk about Raven Carver, anything you would like as we close out this podcast. So, Lucas,
You
all is
know
yours.
yeah, yeah, thank you for the invite. The last thing I want to add is I think I'm new to this field. I come from a 12 years of logistics port automation, and I
Mm-hmm.
love the field. I think aside from the dishonesty, but there's a lot of things you could do to combat that, so to speak. I love the field. I love the high paced environment, and finding efficiencies within the customer's network because we've been doing a pretty good job at it. So thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lucas, CEO of Raven Cargo. Please check him out if you need a 3PL/4PL. Very automated friendly. And let's have a great day.